What do you expect the president may say tonight that involves intelligence?
Well, what he may say is anybody's guess. Whether he says anything that's true or new, I am very skeptical. I've been either chair or vice chair of the Intelligence Committee for most of the last decade. A lot of this focus on foreign interference started when Russia interfered in 2016 on behalf of Donald Trump. And this is the irony, to Trump's actual credit, the first administration's credit, they set up a series of efforts at the Director of National Intelligence, at the FBI, at the NSA. They had their whole cybersecurity agency working with state election officials to make sure that 2020 was safe. And the head of the cybersecurity agency said it was the safest election in American history. Now, that cost him his job. Trump fired him for telling the truth. And what is going to be particularly, I think, challenging, the president's current head of the CIA is John Radcliffe. At the end of president's term in 2020 and early 2021, John Radcliffe was the director of national intelligence. After the 2020 election, there was a thorough examination of all kinds of activities of foreign actors. John Radcliffe, as director of national intelligence, said, well, there were attempts to influence, and what does that mean? Using social media to try to promote positions. And they said the Russians were doing it on behalf of Trump, the Iranians were doing it against Trump, and that the Chinese had the capacity, and they may have done some, but they were less about a particular candidate and more just trying to undermine credibility. They said that had no effect or no meaningful effect. On election interference, where you try to break in and either try to get into a voting system or actually change results, they said no activities like this were successful. And we had a 2020 election validated by the Trump officials as safe, 2022 validated, 2024 validated. And then ironically, Jake, in the first, 500 days you just said that he's been in power again, he has systemically started to dismantle all of this election security apparatus at the Director of National Intelligence Office, at the FBI, at CISA, as he's cut that agency by half. He even took something called the Election Assistance Commission, which helps work with state and local elections, and basically fired all the top people, fired the Democrats, and made the Republican basically quit. So I wonder where he's headed. But if viewers tonight hear some extraordinary claim, take a deep breath. These got to be fact-checked.
Yeah.
We've seen repeatedly this president has no unwillingness to veer away from the truth or just fabricate things outright.
Well, we know that there are all these unusual moves that the president is making that could impact the 2026 or 2028 elections. You have this guy, Bill Pulte, who's acting director of national intelligence. His only qualification seems to be loyalty to Trump and the willingness to weaponize access to mortgages that he had when he was head of the Federal Housing Authority, or I guess he still is head of that as well. Then, of course, you have this guy, Kurt Olson, an election denier who was fined by a judge. He's running around doing stuff. He signed the warrant for the raid on the Atlanta election equipment. You had the raid on the Puerto Rican election equipment. Both of those are Dominion. In Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan's book, there's this anecdote relayed by Tucker Carlson that Nicolas Maduro offered to tell Trump that the Venezuelans hacked the election. Where do you see all of this headed?
Time will tell. I think Trump realizes if we have a free and fair election this year, he's going to get whooped. His policies, from the war of choice in Iran to skyrocketing prices, to how America, you see international polling showing China's more respected than America today. These are all dragging him down politically and his Republican allies. And I think he may be so desperate that he's willing to pull whatever kind of rabbit out of the hat. And it's going to be important for the intelligence community to hold its ground. And we have seen in this past year as well, when intelligence officials have told the truth, they've been fired. For example, General Cruz, who was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, after we bombed the Iranians the first time, and he said, Cruz said we were pretty successful, bombed the heck out of them, but we didn't obliterate their enriched uranium. Obviously not, because we're still trying to go after it. He got fired for saying that. So I've been talking about this for the last 9 months, and now we're starting to see it play out, that he's trying to get rid of the ability to speak truth to power, the independence of the intelligence community. Lord knows what he's going to say tonight. And if he revamps this tidal theory of Venezuela combined with Italy and satellites breaking into voting machines. Remember, Fox echoed those false claims a number of years back, and they got sued for libel and paid what, $800 million?
787 and a half billion.
Yeah, so it's just
million,
but
rather,
it's,
million. Yeah.
Right, a lot of money, and
Yeah.
a clearly overwhelming verdict. But again, we know that Donald Trump is desperate, and when he's desperate, he'll do almost anything. And that's why we're going to need fact checkers tonight. We're going to need, if you guys carry it, you need to carry it with hopefully real-time fact checking and experts that can come in and debunk some of the charges that will be made. And again, I come back to one of the most important points. The election analysis done under Donald Trump about the 2020 election was briefed to Donald Trump on January 7th, 2021.
Yeah.
A few days before he left, said there was no major interference, no interference at all, and no major effects of the influence campaigns that take place every election cycle.
Just a
nothing
quick,
to there.
Just on the matter of fact checking, just a tiny fact check of you. The $787.5 million, that was not a verdict. That was a settlement. Fox worried it was going to be that if there actually was a verdict, it was going to be much, much worse than 787.5.
Jake Fairpoint.
Okay.
It was even more egregious. It was even more egregious.
You just used the word verdict. I just wanted to make sure it was a settlement,
Amen.
not a verdict.
Amen.
All right.
You got it.
Democratic
You got
Senator
it.
Mark Warner of Virginia. Thank you so much. Coming up, a story.